very warm welcome to all of you here today, and we're here at, as George was mentioning, as the Bishop was mentioning, as all the speakers you were talking about. We are actually at the threshold of something great, and it's my privilege to start off this session introducing to you the world that we are able to enjoy this privilege in. And to talk about the world today, you know, we live in this world, we see the world around us, but are we really looking close enough? Are we looking into this world that we see around us? Allow me to share with you, during this time that we have together, what is the world we live in. The world today is an increasingly challenging and complex world. This paper sets out to give you a bird's eye view of certain characteristics of the world that we live in today. From population of 4 billion in 1974, 5 billion in 1988, 6 billion in 2000, and over 6.79 billion in 2009, the world around us is growing in numbers. It is actually mushrooming in huge quantities. But a surprising fact, and this is something that most of us would not have actually realized, is that even though the general population is growing, there is actually a decline in the growth rate. Now, if you look at the world, there is actually a gradual decline over the years, right? The growth rate of the population is decreasing. What does this all mean, right? It actually tells us that people are living longer in both industrial and developing countries because of increased access to immunization, primary health care, and disease eradication programs. Many parents are realizing that as health conditions improve, more of their children are likely to survive, and so they're choosing to have fewer babies. Increased access to family planning is helping parents control the number and spacing of their children. In addition, with greater access to education and jobs, more women are starting their families later and are having fewer but healthier children. This is the world that is growing, but is also not growing. Some of the facts of this world that we look about is that, as I said, the birth rate of children, right, is actually decreasing, right? Is actually decreasing at many levels, The reason behind the decrease is this kind of advancements in healthcare, advancements in technology, right? And the world that we're seeing is actually becoming more complex today. Family trends. We have many families that are, how would I say, there are fewer marriages happening. The reason being people are marrying late into their marriages. And people are deciding to stay, what do you say, unmarried, single, live in relationships. A lot of trends are rising in this context. You know, an interesting statistic is that 4 out of 10 children in America today are born out of wedlock, right? The institution of marriage, as we see, is at certain alarming levels collapsing. I would like to say, this means that more children each year are not living in families that include their own married biological parents. People are living increasingly in families that they were not born in, but are rather into at various levels. Where is all of this headed? You know, why are we having this? Because there is an increasing trend. George was talking to you about relativism, right? Relativism is, I would say, one of those areas where you're trying to say everything matters, right? Everything matters because nobody is right and nobody is wrong. There is no constant. And so my 2 plus 2 can be 5. Your 2 plus 2 may be 4, right? But I'm okay with your 4 as I expect you to be okay with my 5, right? This is a relativist trait. Why are we having a relativist attitude in the world today? Key determinants such as lack of time, increased pressure at work, study, life situations, to perform better than peers, increased dependence on individual merits, and obviously changes in relationship structures like family are helping us, are leading us to a more relativist approach to life. The pressure to take on such a relativist approach is so much so as to avoid the risk of alienation amongst the peer circle. And I would say a very small peer circle that today's individual might have, right? Be it the workplace, be it home, or be it a family situation. This notion, right, that to be tolerant is one has to take a relativist approach. Most people say you are intolerant if you're not relative. If you can't accept me as I am, you're becoming intolerant. And this pressure is so much that this led many people to being part relativist or to agree to relativism on many aspects. Surprisingly, all of us also are being very relative in many areas. This view that legitimate ethical values, especially in different cultural contexts, cannot be judged from an objective or a universal standpoint is today becoming an increased part of our world's collective attitudinal belief. It is not just in religion, it is not just in society, it's in every little aspect. Even the way I wear my clothes is becoming a relativist approach. And we would fear to rather take a stance and stay alienated. But most of us would love to go in rather and accept what this relativist approach teaches us. Now, this is one part of the world we live in today. Another interesting trend. Now, the world has been migrating from as far as probably BC times. Many people have been shifting geographically in search of better avenues to live, in jobs, food. We've been moving across. But increasingly today, in today's world, there is a very, how would I say, a definite growth pattern happening in our migration patterns. A definite growth in this migration. People are moving in to search of study, moving for work, moving to settle down, and the world is becoming a globalized area where it is easy to actually shift. And between 1960 and 2000, the number of international migrants in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Europe, Northern America, and the successor states of the former USSR increased by 78 million persons, right? And whereas the number in less developed regions rose by almost 27 million. We're talking about 1 billion people in 40 years, right, who have actually migrated. 1 billion people. That's almost 1/6 of the population if you looked at it collectively. Now, this has created a whole new class of problems and opportunities, and have changed the genetic makeup of most nations' populations. If you would go into France today, right, rather than expecting to see French, you would be surprised to see many other nationalities who, by the way, are French, right? Are French. They are French.